Weakness is not always visible to the eye. It does not always appear as trembling hands or a frail body. Often, weakness lives in silence, hidden in excuses, in the endless delay of action, in the small voice inside your head that whispers, "Not today, maybe tomorrow." That voice, if left unchallenged, will break you long before the world ever does. The Stoics knew this truth centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, faced endless battles both on the field and within himself. He wrote in his private notes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." His enemy was not the barbarians beyond the frontier. It was the weakness within, the temptation to surrender to despair, fatigue, or indulgence. Weakness wears many masks. Sometimes it is laziness, the urge to stay in comfort when duty calls you forward. Sometimes it is fear, hesitation that keeps you from speaking, acting, or living fully. Other times, it is desire, an endless craving that chains your mind to fleeting pleasures. Whatever form it takes, weakness has one goal: to own you. And here is the truth the Stoics repeated again and again: if you do not break your weakness, it will break you. Epictetus, born a slave and crippled in body, knew suffering in its rawest form. Yet he declared, "No man is free who is not master of himself." What greater prison exists than being ruled by fear, by cravings, by anger, or by excuses? The chains of weakness are heavier than iron because they are forged inside the mind. Seneca, too, warned against the softness of spirit that comes from a life of ease. He reminded his students that luxury breeds fragility and that only the disciplined mind endures storms without collapsing. A person who has never trained against weakness will shatter at the first touch of hardship. To break weakness, one must first recognize it. Look at yourself honestly. Where do you run from difficulty? Where do you seek excuses instead of solutions? Where do you give power to fear instead of courage? The Stoic path begins with awareness, and then action. Weakness is broken, not in grand moments of glory, but in small acts of discipline repeated daily. Waking when the alarm rings instead of bargaining for 5 more minutes. Choosing to work when laziness tempts you to scroll endlessly. Facing discomfort instead of escaping into pleasure. Each small victory is a crack in the chains of weakness. The Stoics taught that we must train like soldiers, preparing for battle. Not because life is constant war, but because life will test us without warning. Voluntary discomfort, reflection, restraint. These are not punishments, but rehearsals for strength. By practicing denial of comfort when it is easy, we prepare ourselves for the day when life denies us comfort by force. Weakness cannot be reasoned with. It must be confronted. It must be broken again and again until discipline becomes second nature. For if you allow weakness to linger, it grows bold. What begins as a whisper of hesitation becomes a roar of defeat. So, remember, the battle is not out there. It is here, in your mind, every day. Break your weakness before it breaks you. Because once it does, no army, no wealth, no friends, no comforts will be able to rebuild what you surrendered within yourself. This is the Stoic truth. To live strong, you must conquer the enemy that lives in your own heart. Weakness is a cunning enemy. It rarely appears as an obvious threat. Instead, it disguises itself as comfort, as safety, as desire. To defeat it, the Stoics insisted that we must first unmask it. You cannot fight what you refuse to see. Weakness as comfort. The first mask of weakness is comfort. At a glance, comfort feels harmless. What is wrong with resting a little longer, eating a little more, enjoying the pleasures of life? Yet Marcus Aurelius warned himself daily in his meditations. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being. Comfort whispers, stay warm under the blanket, avoid the cold, avoid the work. But each time you obey, you grow softer, less resilient. When life inevitably throws hardship your way, illness, loss, betrayal, the one who is trained only in comfort will collapse. Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort, sleeping on the floor, wearing simple clothes, fasting, not because they hated life, but because they knew that weakness hides in the addiction to ease. Weakness as fear. The second mask is fear. Fear convinces us that inaction is safer than action. It tells us not to speak the truth, not to try something new, not to pursue the path of virtue. Epictetus taught his students, many of whom were slaves or exiles, that fear is not in the events themselves, but in how we judge them. Fear paralyzes. It creates a prison where opportunities pass by while we remain locked inside ourselves. To the Stoics, courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. To act despite trembling, to walk forward even when uncertain, that is how fear is broken. Every step taken into the unknown is another crack in its mask. Weakness as desire. The third mask is desire. Desire itself is not evil. Hunger, thirst, love, ambition are natural. But when desire becomes uncontrolled craving, it chains the soul. Seneca observed that the more we desire, the less free we become, because our happiness becomes hostage to things outside our control. Desire promises happiness if only we acquire more wealth, more praise, more pleasure. Yet the Stoics saw that such hunger is endless. One desire satisfied creates 10 more. To live enslaved by desire is to live in constant complaint, never at peace. The antidote, they taught, is moderation. Enjoy what is before you with gratitude, but do not cling. Let desire serve you, not rule you. Weakness as anger. The fourth mask is anger. Many mistake it for strength, for passion, for power. But Seneca wrote an entire book titled On Anger to prove the opposite. Anger blinds, weakens, and destroys. It makes us slaves of our emotions, striking blindly at friend and foe alike. The Stoics advised the practice of delay. When provoked, do not answer at once. Step back, breathe, look at the offense as if from a distance. Ask yourself, will this matter in a year, in a month, in a day? More often than not, the answer is no. Anger dissolved in reflection reveals itself to be weakness in disguise. Weakness as complaint. Lastly, weakness appears as complaint. To complain is to confess that you have surrendered. Complaints waste time, magnify suffering, and spread negativity. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, do not waste the remainder of your life in thoughts about others when you do not refer your thoughts to some object of common utility. In other words, stop complaining, start acting. Weakness has many faces, but they all lead to the same end, enslavement of the soul. The Stoics urge us to be vigilant, to recognize the masks and tear them off. For the true battle is not with external enemies, but with the weakness that hides inside us, waiting for the chance to take control. To master comfort, choose discipline. To master fear, choose courage. To master desire, choose moderation. To master anger, choose patience. To master complaint, choose action. Break these masks before they become your identity. Because once weakness defines you, strength will be almost impossible to recover. The Stoics did not believe strength appeared by chance. They treated discipline like a muscle, something built by constant training. Weakness is patient. It grows each time you delay, each time you surrender to comfort, fear, or desire. Strength, too, is patient. It grows each time you resist, each time you act with courage, each time you choose the harder but nobler path. To break weakness, you must train daily, not once, not sometimes, but every day, because weakness does not rest. Morning preparation. Marcus Aurelius began each morning with reflection. He reminded himself that the day ahead would bring interruptions, ingratitude, selfishness, and hardship. But he also reminded himself that none of it could touch his inner fortress unless he allowed it. Every morning is a chance to set your mind like armor. Ask yourself, what will I face today? Where might weakness try to break me? By naming the challenges before they appear, you meet them with readiness, not surprise. Weakness thrives in surprise. Discipline thrives in preparation. The Stoic pause. Weakness loves speed. It wants you to react instantly, in anger, in fear, in desire. The Stoic pause is a weapon against this. When provoked, stop. When tempted, wait. When anxious, breathe. A pause of a single heartbeat can mean the difference between surrender and mastery. Epictetus taught that between stimulus and response lies choice. The pause is where freedom lives. Practice it often until it becomes habit. Voluntary discomfort. Seneca advised his students to spend certain days living with little food, coarse clothing, and hardship, asking themselves, "Is this what I feared?" By embracing discomfort voluntarily, you rob fear of its power. This is not self-punishment, it is self-liberation. Cold showers, fasting, walking instead of driving, sleeping on the floor, all small practices that train the mind to endure, to know that comfort is not necessary for survival. Weakness loses its grip when you learn you can thrive without luxury. Journaling the battle. Weakness is subtle. It sneaks in unnoticed. That is why journaling was central to Stoic practice. Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations, not for the world but for himself, daily reminders, corrections, and encouragements. Each night, take account of your day. Where did weakness win? Where did you resist? Write honestly, without pride or shame. Reflection sharpens awareness, and awareness is the first weapon against weakness. Gratitude in hardship. The Stoics believed even pain could be a teacher. To complain is to waste the lesson. Instead, practice gratitude, especially in hardship. Lost money? Be grateful for the chance to learn detachment. A broken relationship? Be grateful for the lesson in resilience. Illness? Be grateful for the chance to cultivate patience. Gratitude transforms weakness into strength by refusing to see life as unfair. Life simply is. Your interpretation makes it curse or gift. Digital Stoicism for the modern age. Though the Stoics lived centuries ago, their exercises adapt perfectly to today's world. In our time, weakness often comes through distraction, endless scrolling, notifications, shallow entertainment. Discipline requires digital fasting, setting hours without screens, focusing deeply on one task, reclaiming attention as your most precious resource. A day filled with distraction is a day surrendered to weakness. A day focused is a day of strength. Strength is not built in grand heroic moments. It is built in the quiet decisions of daily life. To rise when tired, to work when unmotivated, to restrain desire, to hold your tongue, to reflect before sleep. This is training. Each act is a hammer strike against weakness. The Stoics remind us, do not wait for the battlefield. Life itself is the training ground. Break weakness today in the small moments, so that when greater trials arrive, you are already unbreakable. There is one truth no man can escape: death. We may ignore it, postpone thinking about it, pretend it is far away, but still it comes, silently, without asking permission. For the Stoics, death was not a dark shadow to fear, but a constant teacher. Memento mori. Remember that you will die. Why? Because weakness thrives in forgetfulness. When you think you have endless time, you delay. You say, tomorrow I'll be disciplined. Tomorrow I'll begin. Tomorrow I'll change. But tomorrow is not promised. To forget death is to feed weakness with excuses. Marcus Aurelius and the reminder of mortality. The emperor of Rome, ruler of millions, wrote to himself in his meditations, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Imagine the most powerful man in the world reminding himself daily that death could take him in the next breath. This thought did not make him despair. It sharpened his focus. It broke his weakness. For how could he waste time on trivial pleasures, on anger, on complaints, when he knew each day might be his last? Seneca, on the shortness of life. Seneca warned that people are not short of life. They waste much of it. Time, he said, is our greatest treasure, and yet most treat it as if it were infinite. Complaints, laziness, chasing shallow desires, all are thefts of our limited hours. To live with death in mind is not morbid, it is liberating. It frees you from wasting time. It strips away distractions. It reveals what truly matters. Weakness crumbles before the urgency of mortality. Epictetus and the equality of death. Epictetus reminded his students, slaves and nobles alike, that death comes for everyone. Wealth, fame, beauty, power, none of it prevents the final hour. Why cling to possessions? Why fear insults? Why waste life in weakness when the grave equalizes all? To remember death is to remember freedom. You cannot be broken by loss if you already accept that loss is inevitable. You cannot be enslaved by fear if you accept that death is part of nature. Weakness loses its sharpest weapon when you embrace mortality. Daily practice of memento mori. The Stoics train this awareness deliberately. Each morning, imagine that the day might be your last. Each evening, reflect as if you may not wake again. Far from making life gloomy, this practice makes it urgent, meaningful, alive. When you hold death in your mind, excuses vanish. Complaints seem ridiculous. Comfort becomes hollow. Fear loses its power. Desire shrinks to its proper size. Death reminds you, life is short, but within your control lies how you live it. Modern weakness and the denial of death. In our age, weakness often disguises itself in denial of mortality. We avoid the thought of death, surrounding ourselves with distraction, entertainment, endless busyness. But this avoidance makes us fragile. When death touches us, a loved one lost, a sudden illness, we collapse, unprepared. The Stoic is different. By rehearsing death in the mind, he strengthens himself. He uses mortality not as a curse, but as fuel. Each moment becomes precious, each act weighed, each choice sharpened. Weakness cannot survive in a soul that remembers death. Memento mori is not a call to despair. It is a call to discipline. Remembering death is remembering that time is a gift, not a guarantee. It is the ultimate weapon against procrastination, against excuses, against weakness itself. Break your weakness with the sharp edge of mortality. Live as if today were your last, not in reckless indulgence, but in fearless virtue. For one day, you will be right. The Stoics understood a truth that many still ignore. Our greatest battles are not fought with swords or armies, but with our own emotions. Anger, fear, and desire, these three forces are the hidden generals of weakness. Left unchecked, they rule us. Master them, and you master life. Anger, the fire that burns its master. First, many mistake anger for strength. They see the shouting man, the clenched fists, the heated words, and think, there is power. But Seneca wrote, anger is like falling into a pit. It drags the soul down, not up. Anger weakens because it blinds. It drives you to speak words you later regret, to make decisions without reason, to hurt even those you love. Anger burns not only its target, but the one who carries it. The Stoic remedy is delay. When provoked, step back. When insulted, remain silent. When tempted to lash out, breathe. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. In mastering anger, you turn weakness into dignity. Fear, the chain that holds you back. Fear whispers lies. You cannot. You will fail. You will be humiliated. Fear convinces you to stay small, to avoid risk, to live half a life. But Epictetus declared, men are not afraid of things, but of their judgments about things. Fear is weakness because it freezes action. It makes you retreat into safety while opportunity passes by. The Stoic approach is not to erase fear, but to confront it daily. Speak when your voice trembles. Step forward when your legs shake. Fear shrinks when faced. It grows when avoided. Weakness tells you to wait until fear disappears. Strength teaches you to act while fear remains. Desire. The endless hunger or desire is perhaps the most seductive form of weakness. It does not scream like anger or paralyze like fear. It whispers promises of happiness if only you gain more wealth, more praise, more pleasure. But Seneca warned, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Desire enslaves because it is never satisfied. One victory demands another. One indulgence creates another craving. The more you obey desire, the stronger its chains become. The Stoic answer is moderation. Enjoy what life offers, but do not cling. Take pleasure as a guest, not as a master. Train yourself with small acts of denial. Skip a luxury, fast for a day, walk when you could ride. In learning to say no, you prove that desire does not rule you. The balance of emotion. The Stoics did not preach the killing of emotion. They preached mastery. Anger can become courage if directed by reason. Fear can become caution if held in balance. Desire can become ambition if restrained by virtue. The goal is not to be cold, but to be in command. Weakness is letting emotions lead. Strength is holding the reins. Modern chaos, ancient solution. In today's world, anger explodes on screens, fear spreads in headlines, desire is fed by endless ads. We live in an age designed to inflame emotion. That is why Stoicism is more vital than ever. Pause before you post. Reflect before you react. Limit your consumption of noise. Choose gratitude over envy. These are modern Stoic exercises to keep weakness from conquering the mind. To master emotions is to master yourself. Anger, fear, and desire will always knock at your door. Weakness lets them in without question. Strength greets them with discipline and decides who enters. Break your weakness by mastering emotion before emotion masters you. At first glance, discipline looks like chains. Waking early when you could sleep longer. Saying no when you could indulge. Holding back your tongue when anger burns inside. To many, discipline feels like restriction, a prison of rules. But the Stoics revealed the paradox. Discipline is not the loss of freedom. It is the only path to it. The illusion of freedom. Most people confuse freedom with indulgence. They think being free means doing whatever they want, whenever they want, eat what they crave, speak every thought, chase every desire. Yet this is not freedom, it is slavery. The man who cannot resist comfort is a slave to comfort. The woman who cannot stop scrolling is a slave to distraction. The one who explodes in anger is a slave to rage. Indulgence does not liberate, it chains. Weakness thrives in this false freedom. Epictetus, the slave who was free. Epictetus, born into slavery, understood the paradox better than most. Though his body was owned, his mind was not. He taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Freedom begins inside. You may be bound by circumstance, but if you master your desires, fears, and impulses, you are sovereign. The undisciplined man may appear free, but he is ruled by appetites. The disciplined man may appear restrained, but he commands himself. Who is truly free? Seneca. Chains of desire. Seneca wrote that men build their own prisons with luxury, wealth, and ambition. They think they are masters of their possessions, but in truth, their possessions master them. He urged simplicity, moderation, restraint, not as punishment, but as liberation. The man who needs little is freer than the man who owns much, but fears losing it. Weakness builds cages from desires. Discipline breaks them. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor's freedom. Even Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, the most powerful man alive, reminded himself that his real power was not armies or wealth, but mastery of his own mind. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. If an emperor saw discipline as freedom, what excuse do we have? Practical path to discipline. Discipline of time. Guard your hours. Do not let distractions steal them. To master time is to master life. Discipline of desire. Learn to say no. Each refusal weakens the chain of craving. Discipline of speech. Speak less, but with weight. Silence is freedom from regret. Discipline of thought. Filter your mind. Let only what serves virtue remain. Each act of discipline may feel like denial, but it is actually a doorway to control, peace, and freedom. Modern slavery versus ancient freedom today. Slavery rarely wears chains of iron. It wears chains of habit, of addiction, of endless wanting. Weakness bows to these masters. Discipline refuses. Turn off your phone. Wake when you said you would. Finish what you began. These are not punishments. These are victories. Each one frees you from the invisible masters of modern life. The paradox is clear. Without discipline, you live at the mercy of impulse. With discipline, you live at the command of your will. One path leads to slavery, disguised as freedom. The other leads to freedom disguised as restraint. Break your weakness, embrace discipline, and you will discover that freedom has been waiting inside you all along. No man escapes suffering. Rich or poor, strong or weak, emperor or slave, pain visits all. Some collapse beneath it, crying out in complaint, asking, "Why me?" Others, the Stoics, take suffering as a teacher, a forge that hardens the soul into steel. Weakness fears suffering. Strength uses it. Epictetus, the slave's test. Epictetus was beaten, insulted, and lived much of his life in bondage. Yet he said, "Difficulties are things that show what men are." Suffering was not his end, but his training ground. Each hardship was a chance to prove mastery over himself. Weakness looks at suffering and says, "This is unfair." Strength looks at suffering and says, "This is training." Marcus Aurelius, the emperor's burden. Marcus Aurelius endured plague, war, betrayal, and the death of his children. Yet in his meditations he wrote, If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And you have the power to revoke this at any moment. The emperor carried the weight of an empire, yet he saw pain not as curse, but as opportunity to practice virtue, patience, courage, endurance. Seneca, pain as a polishing stone. Seneca compared suffering to friction that polishes the soul. Just as fire tests gold, adversity tests character. Weakness breaks under pressure. Discipline shines. He wrote, "Fire tests gold, misfortune tests brave men." To the Stoics, pain was not punishment, but proof. Practical Stoic exercises for suffering. Reframing pain. When hardship strikes, do not ask, "Why me?" Ask, "What is this teaching me?" Voluntary hardship. Practice small discomforts, cold water, skipped meals, long walks, so greater pain finds you prepared. Focus on control. Separate what is within your power from what is not. Endure what you cannot change. Act on what you can. Gratitude in suffering. Thank hardship for sharpening your patience, your courage, your resilience. These practices transform suffering from enemy to ally. Modern weakness in the face of pain. Today, people treat pain as abnormal, something to be avoided at all costs. At the first sign of discomfort, they reach for distraction, medication, or complaint. But a life without pain is a life without strength. The Stoic does not seek pain, but he does not run from it. He meets it head-on, knowing it is part of life, part of growth. Each challenge endured without complaint is another blow against weakness. The dignity of endurance. There is a quiet nobility in suffering silently, with strength. Not silence born of repression, but silence born of mastery. To endure without bitterness is to rise above circumstance. To take pain and turn it into patience, compassion, and wisdom is the highest art of living. Weakness collapses under suffering. Strength rises through it. The Stoics teach us that suffering will either break you or build you. The choice is yours. Break your weakness by embracing pain as training. For in suffering, the soul discovers what it is truly made of. A man may conquer himself in solitude, but his greatest test comes in the company of others. Love, friendship, family, conflict. Here weakness often hides, erupting as jealousy, anger, complaint, or selfishness. The Stoics knew that true strength is not proven by standing alone on a mountain, but by standing firm in the chaos of human relationships. Love without chains, love, when ruled by weakness, turns into possession and fear of loss. Jealousy poisons affection, and clinging suffocates both lover and beloved. But Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you kiss your child, remind yourself he may not be here tomorrow." This was not coldness, but clarity. Love is not ownership. It is gratitude for what is given, even if for a moment. The disciplined lover cherishes without chaining, cares without controlling, and loves without complaint when fate decides otherwise. Weakness makes love fragile. Discipline makes love free. Friendship built on virtue. Many friendships are built on pleasure or advantage. They last while times are easy, but collapse under strain. Seneca warned, "He who begins to be your friend because it pays will also cease because it pays." The Stoic seeks friends not for gain, but for virtue, for honesty, loyalty, and strength. Such friendships endure storms because they are rooted not in weakness, but in shared pursuit of the good. Conflict without fury. Weakness shows itself most clearly in conflict. The quick insult, the raised voice, the refusal to listen, these are the weapons of the undisciplined. Yet Epictetus advised, "When someone irritates you, know that he does so because he thinks it right. To see ignorance, not malice, behind offense disarms anger. The disciplined man faces conflict with calm. He listens, he answers briefly, he chooses justice over revenge. His dignity is his shield. Family is duty, not burden. In family life, weakness often manifests as complaint. The tired father resents his children. The impatient son despises his parents. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to expect selfishness, ignorance, and ingratitude even from those closest to him, and to meet them with patience, not bitterness. To the Stoic, family is duty, an arena for practicing virtue. Weakness runs from responsibility. Strength embraces it. The discipline of speech. Most wounds in relationships are delivered not by weapons, but by words. A careless sentence can cut deeper than a sword. Seneca advised, speech should be like gold, precious and rare. Discipline in speech means choosing words that heal, not harm. Silence when silence is wiser. Truth spoken gently. Restraint where gossip tempts. The tongue undisciplined is weakness. The tongue mastered is strength. Compassion with boundaries. The Stoic is not cold. He feels, he cares, he serves. But his compassion is disciplined. He does not indulge weakness in others, nor does he complain when his kindness is unreturned. He gives because virtue demands it, not because applause rewards it. Compassion without boundaries drains. Compassion with discipline strengthens. In relationships, weakness shows itself in jealousy, anger, complaint, and selfishness. But discipline transforms them into gratitude, patience, honesty, and duty. Break your weakness in how you love, in how you befriend, in how you fight, in how you speak. For the strongest man is not the one who conquers enemies, but the one who conquers himself among those he loves. A man may conquer himself in solitude, but his greatest test comes in the company of others. Love, friendship, family, conflict. Here weakness often hides, erupting as jealousy, anger, complaint, or selfishness. The Stoics knew that true strength is not proven by standing alone on a mountain, but by standing firm in the chaos of human relationships. Love without chains. Love, when ruled by weakness, turns into possession and fear of loss. Jealousy poisons affection, and clinging suffocates both lover and beloved. But Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you kiss your child, remind yourself he may not be here tomorrow." This was not coldness, but clarity. Love is not ownership. It is gratitude for what is given, even if for a moment. The disciplined lover cherishes without chaining, cares without controlling, and loves without complaint when fate decides otherwise. Weakness makes love fragile. Discipline makes love free. Friendship built on virtue. Many friendships are built on pleasure or advantage. They last while times are easy, but collapse under strain. Seneca warned, "He who begins to be your friend because it pays will also cease because it pays." The Stoic seeks friends not for gain, but for virtue, for honesty, loyalty, and strength. Such friendships endure storms because they are rooted not in weakness, but in shared pursuit of the good. Conflict without fury. Weakness shows itself most clearly in conflict. The quick insult, the raised voice, the refusal to listen. These are the weapons of the undisciplined. Yet Epictetus advised, "When someone irritates you, know that he does so because he thinks it right." To see ignorance, not malice, behind offense disarms anger. The disciplined man faces conflict with calm. He listens, he answers briefly, he chooses justice over revenge. His dignity is his shield. family as duty, not burden. In family life, weakness often manifests as complaint. The tired father resents his children. The impatient son despises his parents. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to expect selfishness, ignorance, and ingratitude even from those closest to him, and to meet them with patience, not bitterness. To the Stoic, family is duty, an arena for practicing virtue. Weakness runs from responsibility. Strength embraces it. The discipline of speech. Most wounds in relationships are delivered not by weapons, but by words. A careless sentence can cut deeper than a sword. Seneca advised, speech should be like gold, precious and rare. Discipline in speech means choosing words that heal, not harm. Silence when silence is wiser. Truth spoken gently. Restraint where gossip tempts. The tongue undisciplined is weakness. The tongue mastered is strength. Compassion with boundaries. The Stoic is not cold. He feels, he cares, he serves. But his compassion is disciplined. He does not indulge weakness in others, nor does he complain when his kindness is unreturned. He gives because virtue demands it, not because applause rewards it. Compassion without boundaries drains. Compassion with discipline strengthens. In relationships, weakness shows itself in jealousy, anger, complaint, and selfishness. But discipline transforms them into gratitude, patience, honesty, and duty. Break your weakness in how you love, in how you befriend, in how you fight, in how you speak. For the strongest man is not the one who conquers enemies, but the one who conquers himself among those he loves. A man can lose wealth and earn it back. He can lose health and slowly recover. But when time slips away, it never returns. Seneca warned, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Weakness squanders hours in distraction and complaint. Strength guards time as life itself. The illusion of endless time. Most live as if time were infinite. They waste mornings in idleness, afternoons in trivialities, nights in regret. They delay dreams, saying, "Tomorrow I will begin." But tomorrow is a promise never guaranteed. Weakness whispers, "There is still time." Discipline answers, "Time is already running out." Complaints, the double thief. Every complaint steals twice, once in the pain of the moment, and again in the minutes wasted repeating it. To complain is to live a problem twice, once in reality and again in words. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily not to waste energy on what he could not change. Time spent complaining is time lost to living. The Stoic discipline of hours. The Stoics practice time mastery as a sacred art. Morning resolve. Begin the day with intention. Before the world distracts you, choose your path. Focused work. Attend to the task at hand fully, as if it were the last you would do. Evening review. Examine the hours. Where was time wasted? Where was it invested? Guarding against triviality. Avoid meaningless chatter, shallow pursuits, and endless diversions. To use time well is to live well. To waste it is to die before your death. Modern distractions, ancient wisdom. In today's world, weakness wastes time in new ways. Endless scrolling, constant notifications, binge after binge. People spend more time watching others live than living themselves. The Stoics, if alive today, would see this as chains more dangerous than iron. Chains of distraction binding the soul. Discipline means taking back your hours, setting limits, saying no, choosing depth over shallowness. Each minute reclaimed from distraction is a strike against weakness. Memento mori and the value of time. Remembering death gives weight to every moment. When you know the clock is running, you stop wasting minutes. Seneca urged his readers to live each day as a complete life, not as a rehearsal for tomorrow. The weak say, "I will live later." The disciplined say, "I live now." The fruits of time, discipline, clarity, a life directed by intention, not accident. Peace, the calm of knowing your hours are well spent. Strength, the resilience forged by refusing to waste what is finite. Legacy, a life remembered, not for how long it lasted, but how deeply it was lived. Time is life's most precious resource. Weakness wastes it, discipline guards it. To break weakness is to take back your time, and in doing so, to take back your life. Work is often seen as a burden. People complain about their jobs, their tasks, their responsibilities. But the Stoics saw work differently, not as punishment, but as practice. Work is the arena where discipline is forged, where weakness is broken, where virtue is tested. Work as duty, not punishment. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning, at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, "I am rising to do the work of a human being." To him, work was not an annoyance, but a duty, a calling aligned with nature itself. Just as bees make honey and trees bear fruit, man is born to work, to create, to contribute. Weakness complains, discipline accepts. The poison of complaint. Seneca warned that complaining about labor only doubles its weight. The task remains, but the spirit is crushed. Work does not break a man, his attitude does. When we resist duty with bitterness, we enslave ourselves to weakness. Strength comes in embracing work as training, not torment. Excellence without applause. The Stoics taught that true work is measured not by recognition, but by integrity. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it, the craftsman who works with care, the farmer who tills his field with patience, the writer who pursues truth. They labor not for applause, but for virtue. Weakness seeks reward. Discipline seeks excellence. Work as service. All work, when done with virtue, is service. The soldier serves his city. The teacher serves the mind of the young. Even the simplest labor, cleaning, carrying, building, serves the community when done with dignity. The Stoics knew no task is too small if performed with greatness of spirit. Endurance in labor work is rarely easy. Fatigue, monotony, obstacles, these test patience. But Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. Hardship in work is not an enemy. It is the very path to strength. Weakness flees when labor grows heavy. Discipline endures. Creation as legacy. Beyond daily duty lies creation, the act of leaving behind something that outlives us. Marcus Aurelius left meditations, written not for fame, but as personal notes of discipline. Seneca's letters continue to guide centuries later. What we create, whether books, buildings, art, ideas, or lives touched, becomes our echo in eternity. Complaint leaves nothing. Discipline leaves legacy. Practical Stoic habits in work. Begin tasks without delay. Procrastination is weakness disguised. Focus fully. Multitasking scatters energy. Accept hardship as training. Fatigue sharpens resilience. Detach from praise. Do the work for its own sake. Modern relevance. In today's world, many despise their jobs, chase shortcuts, and crave quick success. Yet the Stoic path reminds us, strength is forged in steady, disciplined labor. True greatness is not in sudden bursts, but in daily, faithful work. Work is not a curse, it is a gift, a forge, a training ground. Weakness complains about work. Discipline transforms it into strength, service, and legacy. To break weakness is to embrace work, not as burden, but as the way to mastery. Desire is natural. Pleasure is not evil, but when desire rules a man, he becomes its slave. The Stoics warn that unchecked desire is one of the greatest weaknesses of the human soul. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." The endless hunger. Weakness is never satisfied. It says, just one more drink, one more purchase, one more distraction. Yet the more it gets, the more it wants. Desire is like fire. Feed it, and it grows until it consumes everything. The disciplined man does not kill desire, but he commands it. He eats, but not until gluttony enslaves him. He drinks, but not until drunkenness owns him. He enjoys comfort, but not until comfort weakens him. Stoic moderation. Epictetus taught, "Practice saying to every harsh appearance, 'You are only an appearance, and not the thing you appear to be.'" The Stoic pauses before desire and asks, "Is this necessary? Is this good? Or is this weakness calling me?" Moderation is the armor against desire's chains. It is not denial, it is mastery. Voluntary simplicity. Seneca advised practicing poverty. Sleep on the ground, eat the simplest food, wear rough clothing, even when abundance is available. Not to punish oneself, but to train the soul. When you can be content with little, no loss can enslave you. Weakness fears losing luxury. Discipline makes luxury optional. Desire as a test. Pleasure reveals who commands whom. The man who cannot say no is not free. The man who can enjoy and then walk away is master of himself. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself not to be the plaything of pleasure, but to use desire as a test of strength. The Stoic enjoys, but never depends. Practical Stoic exercises: fasting. Skip meals to remind yourself that hunger will not destroy you. Digital fasting. Step away from endless noise. Prove to yourself you own your attention. Gratitude. Practice. Remind yourself daily that enough is already here. Saying no. Deny small desires often, so great temptations find you trained. Modern chains of desire. In today's world, advertising preys on weakness, whispering, "You need this." Without it, you are nothing. People become slaves to brands, trends, and impulses. Yet all of this is illusion. The Stoics cut through it with clarity. Happiness is found not in having more, but in needing less. The fruits of mastery. Contentment, the peace of sufficiency. Freedom, no chain of craving can bind you. Strength, the ability to resist impulse and act with reason. Joy, pleasure enjoyed without fear of loss. Weakness makes man a slave to desire. Discipline makes desire a servant. The question is simple. Will you rule your pleasures, or will your pleasures rule you? To break weakness is to stand sovereign over desire. To taste, but not cling. To enjoy, but not depend. Of all the weaknesses that break men, anger is the most deceptive. It feels like power. The clenched fist, the raised voice, the surge of adrenaline. Anger convinces us we are strong. But the Stoics knew the truth. Anger is not strength. It is weakness set on fire. The illusion of strength. Seneca devoted an entire treatise to anger, calling it a brief madness. He warned that while anger burns hot, it leaves behind ashes of regret. A man ruled by fury is not master of himself, but slave to impulse. Weakness lashes out. Discipline holds firm. The Stoic pause. Epictetus taught that insult and offense are not chains unless we choose to wear them. When someone provokes you, remember, it is your judgment that has been provoked, not you. The Stoic pause is simple, yet powerful. Stop, breathe, ask, does this truly harm me? Or is it only words, only appearance? In that pause, anger dissolves, and clarity returns. Conflict without chaos, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily. When you wake in the morning, expect to meet interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness. To expect conflict is to rob it of surprise. When offense comes, the disciplined man is ready. He answers with calm, not fury. He seeks justice, not revenge. His silence wounds deeper than shouting, because it reveals mastery. Transforming anger, the Stoic does not suppress anger, but transforms it. The energy of fury, when guided, becomes courage. The heat of outrage, when disciplined, fuels justice. What breaks others can build the wise. Weakness reacts, strength responds. Practical Stoic exercises against anger. Delay, response. Never answer at the height of fury. Time cools fire. Lower the voice. Speaking softly disarms both opponent and self. Reframe. Offense. See insult as ignorance, not malice. Practice forgiveness. Release others not for their sake, but for your freedom. Modern storms of anger. Today, outrage is currency. Social media thrives on fury, feeding people endless reasons to rage. But this constant fire leaves minds burned and spirits exhausted. The Stoic way is resistance. Do not be baited. Do not waste life on battles unworthy of your soul. The fruits of calm strength. Clarity, seeing conflict for what it is, not what emotion distorts. Freedom, no insult can enslave the calm mind. Respect, even enemies admire the one who remains unshaken. Power, true authority is command of self, not of others. Anger is weakness pretending to be strength. Conflict is the test of discipline. The man who breaks his weakness here stands calm in storms that destroy others. To break weakness is to master anger. To master anger is to master yourself. Suffering is universal. No man escapes it. Yet while pain is given, misery is chosen. The Stoics taught that hardship is not an enemy to avoid, but a teacher to embrace. Weakness sees suffering as injustice. Discipline sees it as training. The inevitability of pain. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you will meet pain, you will meet loss, you will meet death. Do not be surprised. Life does not break its promise when hardship comes. It fulfills it. To live is to suffer in some form. Weakness denies this truth and collapses when it arrives. Discipline accepts it and stands. Suffering as training Epictetus, once a slave, knew chains and beatings. Yet he said, difficulties show what men are. And even in difficulty, a man can choose to be happy. Pain was his forge, shaping patience and resilience. The Stoics compared suffering to fire. It burns straw to ash, but it hardens iron into steel. Weakness is consumed, strength is refined. The poison of complaints. When hardship strikes, the weak double their burden with complaints. They endure the pain once in reality, and again in words. But no complaint has ever lessened suffering. Seneca warned, we are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Discipline wastes no time in complaint. It endures with silent strength. Practical Stoic habits in suffering. Reframe pain. Instead of asking, why me? Ask, what is this teaching me? Voluntary hardship. Practice discomfort. So real suffering finds you prepared. Focus on control. You cannot avoid the storm, but you can choose your stance. Gratitude. Amid pain, remember what remains. Life, virtue, courage. Modern hardships, ancient lessons. Today, suffering comes not only through illness or loss, but through stress, anxiety, rejection, and failure. Weakness uses these as excuses to quit. The Stoic transforms them into opportunities. Rejection teaches resilience. Stress builds focus. Failure sharpens wisdom. The dignity of endurance. There is nobility in facing pain without bitterness. To endure without complaint is to show mastery over self. Marcus Aurelius bore endless wars, betrayals, and plague. Yet he wrote words of calm strength that still guide the world. Weakness seeks escape. Discipline endures and grows. The fruits of suffering, resilience, the ability to rise after each fall. Wisdom, lessons carved only by hardship. Compassion, understanding the pain of others through your own. Freedom, liberation from fear of what life can do to you. Suffering will come, whether you welcome it or not. Weakness lets it break the soul. Discipline uses it to build an unbreakable spirit. To break weakness is to face suffering as training. To turn pain into power is the Stoic path to strength. Weakness speaks too much. It fills silence with complaints, gossip, anger, and empty noise. Strength speaks little, but with weight. The Stoics understood that words are not cheap. They shape minds, wound hearts, and either build or destroy character. The danger of loose speech. Seneca warned, speech that is unchecked leads to reckless living. Every careless word reveals weakness. The complainer, the gossiper, the liar, each exposes a lack of self-mastery. Words are like arrows. Once released, they cannot be recalled. Weakness shoots in haste. Discipline holds the bow until the aim is sure. Silence as strength, Epictetus advised. Be mostly silent, or speak only what is necessary and in few words. For the Stoic, silence is not emptiness, it is control. Silence guards dignity. Silence prevents regret. Silence allows space for thought. In a world drowning in noise, silence itself becomes power. The Stoic ideal of speech. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to speak only what is true, useful, and just. 3 measures guide disciplined speech. Is it true? Lies are chains of weakness. Is it necessary? Not every thought deserves a voice. Is it kind or just? Harshness may be needed, but cruelty is not. When speech passes these tests, it becomes an instrument of strength, not weakness. Practical Stoic habits for speech. Pause before replying. The gap between thought and word is where wisdom lives. Practice listening. Weakness interrupts. Strength seeks to understand. Limit complaints. Each complaint spoken is power lost. Daily reflection. At night, ask, what words today built? What words destroyed? Modern noise, ancient remedy. Today, endless feeds demand endless words. People shout online, argue over nothing, and mistake volume for truth. But Stoicism offers the antidote, measured words, rare and deliberate. In a crowd of noise, the calm voice carries furthest. The fruits of disciplined speech. Respect. The man who speaks wisely is heard, even in silence. Peace. Fewer regrets from careless words. Influence. Authority comes not from shouting, but from clarity. Freedom. Mastery of tongue reveals mastery of self. Weakness babbles, shouts, complains. Discipline speaks rarely, but when it does, the world listens. To break weakness is to master the tongue. To master the tongue is to master the soul. Weakness begins in the mind. Long before the body fails or the tongue complains, the thought has already surrendered. An undisciplined mind is a broken gate. Every fear, desire, and illusion rushes in. But the disciplined mind is a fortress. It stands unshaken, no matter the storm. The root of complaints. Every complaint is born as a thought. Before the lips speak, the mind rehearses its grievance. Marcus Aurelius warned, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Weakness forgets this truth and lets thoughts wander like wild beasts. Discipline tames them. The noise of illusion. The world sells illusions. Wealth as happiness, pleasure as freedom, status as success. The weak mind consumes without question. The Stoic mind asks, "Is this within my control? Does this serve virtue?" By filtering thoughts, the Stoic keeps only what builds strength. Living in the present, Seneca taught, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Weakness lives in regret of the past and fear of the future. Discipline lives in the present, where life is real. To dwell too long in what was or what may be is to waste what is." Practical Stoic habits for thought discipline. Morning reflection. Begin the day by setting intentions. Expect hardship. Choose virtue. The Stoic pause. When troubled, ask, "Is this fact or interpretation?" Mental fasting. Limit consumption of noise, news, gossip, distraction. Feed the mind only what strengthens. Evening review. At night, examine the day's thoughts. Which served you? Which weakened you? Modern distractions. Today, weakness hides in endless scrolling, shallow headlines, and constant alerts. Minds scattered by notifications cannot stand strong. The Stoic builds mental discipline by choosing focus, deep work, silence, contemplation. In a noisy age, stillness is rebellion. The fruits of disciplined thought. Clarity, seeing life as it is, not as illusion paints it. Calm, freedom from restless fear and empty desires. Strength, no storm can shake the fortress within. Wisdom, discernment of what matters and what must be ignored. Weakness lets thoughts rule the man. Discipline rules the thoughts. The fortress of the mind is the last defense and the first victory. To break weakness is to guard the gates of thought. To master thought is to master life. A man without purpose drifts like a ship without a rudder. Every wave of desire pushes him one way. Every wind of fear drives him another. Weakness wanders in circles, wasting time, chasing shadows. Strength walks the straight path, guided by a clear purpose. The danger of aimlessness. Seneca warned, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." Aimlessness is weakness disguised as freedom. The one without purpose complains of boredom, of emptiness, of wasted years. But the fault is not in fate, it is in the lack of direction. The Stoic call to purpose. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I rise to do the work of a man.'" The Stoics believed life has one ultimate purpose: to live in accordance with virtue, justice, wisdom, courage, temperance. All else, wealth, fame, pleasure, is secondary, fleeting, fragile. Weakness chases appearances. Discipline holds to essence. Practical Stoic habits for purpose. Daily alignment. Each morning ask, "Does this choice serve virtue or vanity?" Examine motives. Before action, strip away the mask. Are you seeking approval or truth? Set limits. Purpose is sharpened by boundaries. Say no to distractions that weaken. Nightly review. At day's end ask, "Did I walk straight or did I wander?" Modern aimlessness. Today, distractions multiply. People chase likes, money, status, thinking they are purpose. But hollow goals lead only to more craving. The disciplined soul anchors itself, refusing to be blown by every wind. Purpose transforms chaos into direction, weakness into strength. The fruits of purpose. Discipline, focus, energy gathered, not scattered. Peace, no confusion in a straight path. Resilience, a man with purpose cannot be broken by circumstance. Meaning, each day becomes more than survival. It becomes legacy. Weakness complains life has no meaning. Discipline creates meaning by living with direction. To walk the straight path is to refuse distraction, to silence emptiness, to break weakness at its root. To break weakness is to live for purpose. To live for purpose is to live strong. Nothing exposes weakness more than the fear of death. Men cling to life as if it will last forever, and in that clinging, they waste it. They complain about small troubles, chase empty pleasures, and tremble at the shadow of mortality. But the Stoics taught, to remember death is not despair, it is strength, the weakness of denial. Most live as if immortal. They postpone courage, delay purpose, avoid discipline. Tomorrow, they say. Yet tomorrow is not promised. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Weakness denies death, and so squanders life. The Stoic discipline of death. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think," Epictetus urged. Keep death in exile before your eyes every day, along with everything that seems terrible, and you will never have a base thought, nor will you have excessive desire. To face death is to sharpen life. To meditate on mortality is to cut away triviality. Complaints dissolve when seen against the vastness of the grave. Practical Stoic habits of memento mori. Morning reminder. Begin the day with the thought, this could be my last dawn. Simplify choices. Ask, if today were my final day, would this matter? Evening review. At night, close the day as if closing life with gratitude and peace. Act with urgency. Delay nothing that virtue requires. Courage today, not tomorrow. Modern avoidance. Today, death is hidden, pushed away by comfort and distraction. People scroll through endless feeds, forgetting their time drains away. Weakness fears death, yet dies every day in worry and complaint. Strength faces death, and so lives fully, without chains. The fruits of remembering. Death urgency, no wasted time, every hour counts. Courage. Fear of loss fades before acceptance of fate. Gratitude. Life becomes a gift, not a burden. Freedom. Death equalizes all. Why envy or fear when the end is shared? Weakness trembles at mortality. Discipline embraces it. Memento mori is not a curse but a crown. It gives weight to each breath, meaning to each step. To break weakness is to face death without fear. To face death without fear is to live. Weakness lives only for itself. It complains when unpraised. It sulks when unrecognized. It demands more than it gives. But strength, true Stoic strength, looks outward. It serves without expectation, endures without applause, and stands firm not only for its own sake, but for the sake of others. The Stoic duty of community. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What is not good for the beehive cannot be good for the bee." Life is not lived in isolation. Every man is part of a greater whole. To live only for oneself is to live small. To serve the common good is to live greatly. Seneca warned that selfishness breeds misery. Complaints fester in the one who sees the world as owing him. But discipline turns outward, seeking justice, practicing patience, embodying compassion. Weakness in relationships. Weakness shows itself in bitterness toward others, complaining about unfair treatment, resenting imperfection in friends or family, demanding recognition, yet giving little. This self-centeredness corrodes bonds. It isolates the soul. The discipline of service. To serve is not slavery, it is sovereignty. For the Stoic, service is an expression of virtue. Epictetus taught, act with justice regardless of others' actions. If they betray, you still remain honest. If they slander, you still remain calm. Practical Stoic habits of service. Expect imperfection. People will fail. Do not complain. Prepare. Act justly. Anyway, your virtue is your own, untouched by their flaws. Balance self-care with service. Serve others, but not at the cost of losing yourself. Transform conflict. Let opposition become training for patience. Modern relevance. In today's world, weakness shouts, I deserve. Strength quietly asks, how can I contribute? Modern culture rewards noise, but Stoic service requires steadiness. True greatness is not loud but enduring, feeding a child, keeping a promise, lending a hand without fanfare. The fruits of disciplined service. Patience, no longer angered by others' flaws. Compassion, seeing shared humanity in every face. Strength, to serve without complaint, is to master ego. Meaning, a life beyond self is a life that matters. Weakness isolates, discipline unites. The Stoic does not ask, what can I take, but what can I give? And in that giving, he grows stronger than selfishness, stronger than complaint, stronger than weakness itself. To break weakness is to live beyond the self. To live beyond the self is to touch eternity. Weakness craves quick victories. It seeks shortcuts, sudden breakthroughs, and applause without labor. But strength is patient. The Stoics knew greatness is not built in a moment of passion, but in the slow, disciplined steps of endurance and consistency. The illusion of sudden change. Many wait for a dramatic transformation, one resolution, one moment of motivation. But as Seneca said, it is not that we suddenly become virtuous, but that we practice virtue daily. Weakness collapses when effort feels slow. Strength endures monotony. Knowing the smallest act repeated becomes a fortress. The Stoic training of endurance. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, rise, endure, repeat. Not for glory, but because duty demands it. Epictetus taught his students, practice like an athlete, training the soul not once, but every day. Consistency is discipline made visible. It is not grand speeches, but the silent act of showing up again and again. Practical Stoic habits for consistency. Daily reflection, morning intention, evening review. Anchor the day with purpose. Measure progress. In steps, do not ask, am I transformed? But, did I improve today? Resist. Excuses, weakness. Whispers, skip today. Strength answers, not once. Embrace repetition. The soldier drills. The musician practices scales. The philosopher reviews truths. Mastery is born of repetition. Endurance under pressure. Weakness breaks when tested. Fatigue, pain, failure. Strength grows precisely there. Endurance is not passive. It is active resistance to collapse. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, if it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining. Modern life avoids discomfort, yet those who endure boredom, fatigue, and hardship gain resilience others never touch. The fruits of steady steps, resilience. Hardship becomes routine, not ruin. Trustworthiness. Others rely on the one who endures. Strength. Character forged in repeated fire. Legacy. Greatness remembered not for one act, but for a lifetime of steady ones. Weakness wants fireworks. Strength builds a lighthouse. Silent, steady, unshaken by storms. To break weakness is to endure when it is dull, to persist when it is hard, to remain steady when the world collapses. This is the Stoic way, not sudden, but eternal. Wealth fades, fame dies, bodies turn to dust. But discipline, the quiet strength of a soul that mastered itself, outlives the man who practiced it. The Stoics taught that while fortune cannot be controlled, character remains eternal. To live with discipline is to leave behind a legacy no storm can erase. The fragility of earthly glory. Statues crumble, empires fall, names celebrated in one century are forgotten in the next. Marcus Aurelius himself was emperor of Rome, the most powerful man alive, yet he wrote in Meditations, "Soon you will have forgotten all things, and soon all things will have forgotten you. If even an emperor saw his glory as dust, how fragile is ours? Weakness chases applause, desperate for recognition. Discipline does not. The disciplined life is its own monument, built not in marble but in action. Virtue as the only inheritance. Seneca reminded his students, wealth and estates can be lost, but virtue endures. A disciplined father leaves his children more than money. He leaves them courage. A disciplined friend leaves loyalty that inspires long after death. A disciplined leader leaves justice that echoes through generations. What you own is temporary. Who you are is permanent. Discipline shapes that who, the discipline of daily example. Legacy is not built in final words, but in daily acts. Each morning you rise with discipline. You carve a stone into your monument. Every time you refuse to complain, choose courage, speak truth, and act with justice, you add to the foundation. Your children, friends, or strangers may not quote your speeches, but they will remember your steadiness, your calm under fire, your refusal to be broken. That memory outlives any gold. Breaking weakness beyond your life. Weakness dies with the weak man. Complaints vanish in the air, but strength multiplies. When you live disciplined, others witness it. Your endurance gives them courage. Your restraint gives them guidance. Your refusal to surrender becomes their rallying cry. In this way, your legacy is not just personal, it is communal, eternal. The Stoic monument Epictetus left no empire, only teachings scratched into memory, yet his words shape lives 2 millennia later. Marcus Aurelius did not build monuments of stone. His legacy is a journal, meditations, written for himself, now guiding millions. Seneca's letters, born from discipline, still pierce through time with their fire. Their lesson: you cannot choose whether to be remembered, but you can choose to live in a way worth remembering. Practical steps toward legacy. Live each day as a brick. Every disciplined act adds to the monument. Teach by example, not preaching. Let your silence and steadiness speak. Write your thoughts. Journaling, like Marcus, may outlast you. Serve beyond yourself. Strength given to others survives longer than strength kept. Accept mortality. Knowing time is short makes each act weighty. The eternal flame. Discipline is not a chain, but a flame. Weakness extinguishes itself in comfort and complaint. Discipline burns quietly, consuming vanity, purifying the soul, leaving behind light. That light is what others follow when you are gone. When your name is forgotten, your character remains in the way you shaped others. That is the Stoic path, to live so strongly, so purely, so disciplined that death itself cannot erase you. Closing. So break your weakness before it breaks you. Endure. Persist. Discipline your mind, your heart, your time, your speech, your actions. And when you are gone, let your life be remembered not for what you owned, but for what you mastered, yourself. That is the legacy of the Stoic. That is the eternal monument of discipline